Hi there, everyone. Rah, 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 rah. We're starting a little late. I'm a couple minutes so late because of just, I was so slow today. I'm so slow. Bates is slow. That's always a problem, right? Um, well, today um, we're looking at the, today's, welcome. This is a Friday. This is a new session. I said I'd do these things, and I've been trying to get these things done. Okay, I didn't do something. Okay. Um, we're busy on our things. I thought I did something and I didn't do it. Just as I'm uploading something at the same time, so please forgive. And we're waiting for people to show up. If they do show up, this is um, um, what we do now, right? Well, let's say we're here. We got one person. Okay, disappeared. Oh no, came in. Oh my God. Okay, okay. Things. Greetings. Hello. This is Friday. First of all, next week, I'm teaching. I'm back at Washington University. I have. I've my teaching on Tuesdays and Thursdays, from like 10 till 5. So maybe that's going to be a little interesting in that sense. I'm done teaching at like 4:35. People are going to say, okay, what's doing? I am not teaching anywhere else. I was hoping to teach a course someplace else, but that didn't happen. It didn't manifest. People said they'd help me get something. Well, I know that there'd be no way they'd get one thing, but I was hoping for something. I should do something about to do this for the monetary reasons. It's getting that tight, and we need to buy. My wife's the fascists here in Warsaw, the Green Police, the mayor of Warsaw and the city of Warsaw is going to ban cars. If your car isn't new at a certain day, they're going to ban it. So our car is from like the early thousands, and therefore, or maybe 90s, maybe late 90s. It's not a brand new car, and it will be one of the cars that is going to be banned. So we're going to have to buy a new car. Okay, this is the evilness. This is the fascistic authoritarianism of the green, the upper middle class, the upper. The mayor of Warsaw is one of these children of the rich old communist elites, who, if the revolution comes, deservedly get like that. He's a clown. He's a buffoon of the worst sort. The current mayor of Warsaw, and he's an unserious person, and his green politics is on. They reduced the sizes of Warsaw. They decided, let's have more greenways. So what we're going to do is we're going to take these we're going to reduce these 4-lane roads to 2-lane roads and have green on the side. And this would be great if you didn't have people needing to go back and forth. And yes, public transportation is good, but it's not great. I mean, still people need to go. The city is a big megapolis. It is a multiple big city. So therefore, you have idiots like the mayor who's green. It's not that the green is actually improving the environment. It doesn't. It actually hurts. It contributes nothing, but allows them to feel good about themselves. This is what we call the virtue signaling elite we have, and Poland has. This urban middle class, this urban children of the apparatchik, ex-communist apparatchik elite who got wealth after the transition, who are much wealthier than that, and they got capital, they got land and property because of their connection to the old regime. they and use their status, or they cozy up with the Western Europeans and the business people, and they get political support by appealing to the vanity and the educated urban populations, who professional classes, who wants to feel good and enlightened and virtuous, so they vote for these ridiculous policies, which then hurt working populations, and other people can't afford them. So therefore, you don't need a car. Not sure, yeah, no, you do need a car. I'm sorry, mobility and other things. It's so. My wife is saying I need to go make more money. I used to work 4 or 5 jobs before. I kind of gave that up after when, about a decade ago, I got older, and I just felt like I want to do more writing and more scholarship. Because in Europe, in Eastern Europe, teaching is not you're a horse. You have to work for the money. You have to work for the money. And when I was younger, 15, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, my first 10 years here, I used to work a lot. I used to teach a lot. I used to teach at least, of course, you had 8 courses or 9 courses at the university, plus you had 4 at 2 this place and 2 that way. So I normally often would have a 10 load class, 10 or 12 teaching courses. When I talk to my American friends, always, oh my God, you teach that much and you still get an article or something published? Okay. So that was always kind of a thing. Now, I'm hoping to teach. I need to go teach some more. I need to go get 1 or 2 teaching jobs now, simply so I can make some more, make a little money to help save money to have a couple thousand to buy a new car. I'm not going to buy one of those little budgets. I'm going to get something. I'm a big person, so I want something comfortable. I'm not going to get to a miniature car. We have like a current our cars. I'd be happy with our old car. It's still working. But it's going to be banned, and that's going to be a pain in the ass. So therefore, that's why I'm kind of looking for work, and I'm hoping that there's going to be something that there's a Catholic school nearby that. There is not this semester, but maybe next semester. I go meet them about something and maybe build I was doing with Lazarski, but the private school that kind of died out, and there's another private school nearby that I could teach at 1 or 2 courses at, but I'm kind of leery about private schools here because they're very shaky operations. The Catholic school is just broke. It's not like American Catholic schools where the church gives money to it. Here, the church doesn't really give money to the schools. There's not. You figure in a Catholic country, you'd have more Catholic educational institutions. They just don't exist at the same level. There's 1 or 2, but they're state-funded universities, and then there are Catholic school, Lublin and the Konno-Wyszynski in Warsaw, and then there's like 2 or 3. There's a Jesuit. There's Father Rizik's school in Turin, which is probably the best private school in that terms. It's not University of Turin; it's an academy that Father Rizik has there in Turin. And then there's a Catholic school. There's 1 or 2 Catholic Vysokie Szkoły in Krakow, and I think there may be one or 2 more elsewhere. But they're small Vysokie Szkoły, private schools that are kind of barely surviving as. People can easily now go. There's the slots at state universities. There's the free education at state universities are have more slots, and because the population, the slots increased in the 1990s, and the population shifted. So therefore, there's that. So therefore, there's the economy of, and therefore, starting about 15 years ago, starting 2004, 2005. The private schools were heavily relying on foreign students, and as the Ukraine war, you're not getting students from Belarus and Russia anymore, or the stands, because the Russian controlled 8 regions are not sending their students as much anymore, unless as refugees. And the Ukrainians are here, but they're the draft dodgers. They're the ethnic Russians. Who don't want to go back because one is that if they go back, they will either have to fight their own families or in the East, or they will, it's a conundrum. They'd rather stay in Europe. They'd rather make money. So therefore, this is the conundrum. And also they're Russian speaking, not Ukrainian. The Ukrainians only in their nationality, political identity, where they were citizens of. They are not ethnically Ukrainians for the most part. They're ethnically Russian in that sense, and that therefore they speak Russian, as most Ukrainians actually speak Russian in that sense. But this is the problem, the Ukrainian problem in that sense, that they're not, the political form of Ukraine is different, that it's composed of ethnic Ukrainians and ethnic Russians, and also Tatars, Tatars and that from Crimea, right? But now that's been kind of changed in that sense, and I think the war unified it to some degree, but actually this is yes and no in that sense. The Russians did unify it. No one wants to be these young Ukrainian nationals who are ethnically Russian don't want to be part of Russia. So that's very interesting in that sense. And but they don't, they're not. They're going east. They're making their money in their business. Private schools are dying. So therefore that's that. So therefore that's nonsense. So that is what I'm doing. I'm back to teaching. I'll have 5 classes next fall at the university. 2 of them are going to be basic methods courses, a basic method course. It's the required course, so 2 sections of it. And then I have a section on the Constitution. This is going to be interesting. This is the creation at Philadelphia and the ratification of it. So it's a course on the Philadelphia Convention and the ratification. So that is it's kind of more political history than constitutional law, but it's very interesting with the creation of the American constitutional order. That's the course I like teaching in that sense, but we'll get that, and it seems to be filled. We'll see what happens when they realize you have to do 3 essays. Oh my God, flee! Because we had in the class where they had only 2 essays, they went from 20 students to 10 students. Okay. And then even those 10 students, about 8 of them, only 8 of them actually submitted work. So that is the thing. We'll see what happens in this session. And then my other course I'm teaching is a seminar. I'm doing the seminar with my BA students, finishing their MA work, their BA paper. And then the last thing I'm doing teaching is the course on the first year student course, their first year elective course on Introduction to Politics. So it's going to be a basic course. I've given this lecture. It's available on my YouTube channel. You can go check out the earlier year. I think I might record this again. I might record this again. I have to go get a better recording. I think I'm going to record this again. It's worth recording because I think I did a good job in this course. I know this, and I'm retooling it constantly. And I think this would be worth kind of doing a recording of, in the terms of that. So he sees what happened. So that's it. So we can see hi everyone. Therefore, we got 1 person here today, maybe 2. Like that. Now, in my chat, in the discussion of what I was doing today, I talk about in my the thing, the card. I call it the card in my thing. It says, there's nothing really special planned today, right? I'm going to talk about how the recordings of the Aristotle things. I'm going to talk also about, I want to talk about 2 things. I'll do it reverse of how I presented it. My conference, I'm going to be going to some conferences. I'll still try to make my videos. I try to get the videos. I try to be ahead of the videos, and it's going to be 5 days a week. A video will drop for the Aristotle thing. I'll continue this for the Aristotle thing. I will do the Aristotle thing as a kind of trying to do this as a straightforward manner. Someone tells me, well, you should do something more, better. We'll see what happens. I plan to do this summer a new recording of Machiavelli's Prince. In the format, we'll see how we'll do it. I think that'd be worth doing again. it may be simultaneously, it may not be. We'll see what happens. And I'm rethinking of doing. I might do the Udemy ethics after this. I've been reading the Udemy ethics while doing this, and that's been very interesting. And another thing I might be thinking about doing is Plutarch's Lives. That's always been interesting in that sense. But the problem is getting a good translation. There's no good translations. There's no one uniform translation of Plutarch except the Dryden. The Dryden is so old, and the errors of translation are particularly with the perception of state, the term state, and some terms, the archaic language of Dryden plus that, and that there's no current modern translation that's decent of Plutarch that is uniform. Because it's better, you need to have a single translator so you can compare the lives. That is the whole purpose of the Plutarch, and it's fitting to study Plutarch after reading Aristotle's Ethics. After you read the Ethics, you should look at the Plutarch's Lives, because this is kind of Plutarch's Lives is kind of it's taking the lessons of the virtues and what Aristotle taught regarding in the Ethics, and applying it to the individual political actors and judging their lives and estimating their lives. So this is why this is. But my recording schedule is uniformly state on mine. There's nothing really changed about it. The big thing is going to be the conferences. I'm going to be going to a conference in Budapest on late April on Aristotle. I have to remember to send them the revised title, the title, I think maybe abstract, and the date. And I'm going to have to beg if I can get something. If they can get me a dormitory with my wife. I want to bring my wife with me. If I'm going to go there, it's going to be I have to go by train. I'm going to go by train. I'm going to arrange to take that week off at school, and I have to rearrange things. It's a pain, but it's better to do that. Because I want to go to Budapest to see the conference and maybe spend like a day going by train, enjoy there, and then come back a day later. This is to kind of enjoy the conference and then take a little ease and not rush back one day to kind of enjoy the thing and talk to somebody and get to know the guy at Budapest and maybe arrange for future cooperation. And then the other thing I'm doing in May, I'm invited to another Constitution convention at a palace. In fact, in Poland, it's continuation of something I did with them on Anglo-American Constitutionalism about that. So I'll write something about that, and I'm doing that's that. I really should do. I'm hoping to get my articles done. The small things chat. I have 2 or 3 articles I'm working on that I'm finishing that are kind of written. I have to finish. I have to start my thing that's due in October. I need to get going on the political anthropology essay for them because I need to have it done by October, and this is something I've been asked to do, so it would be worth delivering on. It's not going to be groundbreaking. It's going to be kind of like a tertiary review of what's done in the field, but highlighting the issues of political anthropology of this. And my concern, again, this is the concern of Aristotle, is the question of the community, of living well and living together as in the community. Now, for the big thing about the live streams, this is the big point in my note, is I'm in the middle of a rebrand, because currently it's been either a messing around. It's either the monthly live stream, a Friday live stream, or the Friday monthly live stream, usually monthly live stream. The live stream only became monthly, has been retained only as the monthly live stream. And that the idea of the messing around would be that messing around was going to be something I could record if I couldn't do a Friday live stream. Okay, so therefore that was the of this. Now I'm thinking of totally rebranding this. I might keep messing. I might totally get rid of messing around. I'm going to rebrand it, and I'm going to have new things for this. The new idea for the regular Friday session is we're going to keep the new time at 5 o'clock Eastern Central European, 5 o'clock Central European time, which is about 11 in the morning on East Coast. For those of you in California, it's going to be 2 hours later, so it's going to be mornings. Okay, mornings in East America. Mornings in America in late afternoon in Europe. Okay, this is the mornings in America and late afternoons in Europe. Political theory. Now the title is like political theory on a Friday morning. Okay, and the focus will be political theory, political thought, and questions of this. And that's what I do normally do. Right? This is the. I might even change the title, maybe political things on a Friday. Things talk political. I don't know how esoteric I want to be in that, but the rebranding. That's going to be the rebranding. So I just spent 20 minutes talking about what I'm doing, what I've done. This is the kind of bullshit things I normally kind of prepare the theme. What I talk about today, there's nothing planned. I didn't plan on anything in that sense because it's very difficult to plan. Because usually I was hoping to do something. Well, I'm currently still in the middle of the laws. This week we're going to be finishing up book 5 of the laws from the discussion group that I'm in. There is a big pain. I went through the files and did some kind of cleaning of files, which therefore I was at an 8% warning at the university, and they said they can't expand it, and I need to beg them to be able to expand the thing, and I have to go do that this week, probably next week in that sense. File, please, university, give me a new Google account, additional Google account on this for the Google Drive, so I can, the question is moving. How can you move Google Drive? I just want to cry about that. How do you do this? It'd be easier that they expanded it, but they won't do that because they don't want to pay Google money, and Google's giving them, and Google decided, we want to give you a little bit on it. You don't have to worry about here because I pay about 50 zloty a month, about $10, $15, $12 a month to get my 2 terabyte. So I have plenty of space in my memory. So I only worry about for my spacing for things, recordings that I save and keep. Therefore that's the goals of what's going on here. But what theme is going on? My Aristotle is interesting. Like I said, it's amazing when I look at the Aristotle text. It's been fun to read for the class, for people about the ethics. I've had people contact me about thank you for your video. This was good. I never sort this like this. And I go, yeah, see more. Aristotle's ethics is very much at play in something like Machiavelli's Prince. The famous chapter 13 of the Prince, which he has his very famous not 13, sorry, 15. Sorry, 15. I say 13. 13 is about soldiers, right? 13 is about the auxiliaries, right? But 15 is about praise and blame, right? The question of what things men are praised and blamed, and the virtues and vices that men are praised and blamed for, right? And their liberality is condemned, and he has the whole next chapter on liberality, parsimoniously, right? Which is an attack on liberality, and that Aristotle book 4 was very much on liberality. I think he's attacking, and then the next chapter after that, the attack on cruelty and pity, right? And chapter 17, right? 15, 16, and 17, the virtues and vices, right? And then you get the question of the question of faithfulness, right? whether you should be faithful, piety. Okay, now this is, I think Quentin Skinner is right here, that it's more Cicero and Seneca. The person, not Aristotle. He's not. See, we would think, well, maybe he's mocking Aristotle. No, I think more and more that Aristotle, Machiavelli and Aristotle are closer, and the only difference with Machiavelli is he is the tone and shocking. In other words, he is unlike Aristotle. Seeks always this. Aristotle always understates the bad. He seeks to kind of, he doesn't, he wants to, his approach is completely kind of hide some of the most dark things. Machiavelli's there to shock you. Machiavelli will highlight the horrifying and the things. So the difference, and I think there is some difference on emphasis. I think Machiavelli does not think justice and being virtuous is as good as doing the good, right? Doing what is beneficial and good is more important than being or appearing good. If goodness helps you to, if being good helps you to do good, then fine. But if it blocks you from doing good, then no. If viciousness helps you to achieve the good, then welcome it, embrace it, but at the same time, avoid being hated, right? That's the whole lesson of the Prince, is that don't fear being bad. I mean, don't fear about doing bad things, but avoid being hated and avoid being despised. Don't become despised. You can be despised for doing. The person who tempts goodness but achieves bad results is despised, okay, mocked, not respected. And if you're not, and fear is better. No, fear is better than love, because why? Not because it's because people are fickle. People they're not consistent. They're not, and fear is a better motivation than love in the sense. And that is in Aristotle. That is present in Book 5. That is present, and even in the Nicomachean Ethics about virtue. Because remember, courage is a fearing. It is fearing what is appropriate to be feared. In other words, fear and pleasure are still present in even Aristotle about the question of virtue. It's not this kind of foolish idea that, we must have the good, we must be above the good. The good is this thing that we must transcend and overcome. That's Kant. I always joke about Kant. Kant is a sadomasochist. Kant is basically argues that we can only know the good because it's unpleasurable, it's painful, because we can't, anything pleasurable, if it's pleasurable, maybe we're doing it for our reason for doing it is wrong. If it's beneficial, if it gives us some benefit or some good, we may be doing it or useful, then we can't be sure whether the thing we're doing is really good. And if it's and it cannot be by nature because we're free in that sense. In other words, it might be something. In other words, it can't be it can't be a pleasure, and it can't be useful. So how do we know something is really truly good? It must be painful and it must be harmful. Okay, that is the only way we know the good is what the good is really the good. So therefore, this is the sadistic characteristic. And what is it? And that, remember, that reason reason is not a trait within us. Yes, reason in Aristotle is about the true, knowing what is true versus knowing what is false. And it's the way of our reviewing things to discern the true and the false, right? But it's part of us. It's within us. For Kant, it is an external thing. It's a tool man has created. It is an external thing. It's an external thing that is outside of man, by which then man will use to discover the good. In other words, reason helps us disclose and to get the good. This is where Plato and reason, Plato and Kant kind of similar. This is why people say Plato and Kant are similar idealists. They look for the good and the transcendent of the good, and this is the Coplestonian take. There's a famous edition of the history of philosophy by this Jesuit priest at the end of the early 20th century, the middle of the 20th century, about this multi-volume history of philosophy. And he kind of did this history of philosophy, and then he kind of put these guys together. Oh, we have the realists, we have the empiricists. Aristotle's an empiricist, and like the Lockeans and the utilitarians are kind of a quasi-empiricists. And they look at the real world, but then there's the rationalists versus the empiricists. And then there's the idealists, and idealists, there's two types of idealists. There's the Kant and Plato and Hegel are these ontological empiricists, idealists, and whereas and Kant is this deontological. You have this whole idealism, but different types of idealism, different types of empiricism, different types of rationalism, and skepticism, rationalism, stoicism, and that is this kind of all these schools of philosophy and thinking. And that this is the philosopher does it. There's this guy who there's types of philosophy. There is ontology, metaphysics, ontology. Then it's questions of epistemology, and then axiology about doing, right? About axiology about doing, and that ethics. Is axiology ethics? I have to remember this. Right? Beliefs and things like this, right? This is the so-called axial age. I have to go remember that. I think I'm too much of a political animal to kind of then really appreciate that kind of stuff. I studied it, I understand it, but it was always kind of more interesting for me to look at Machiavellian, Montesquieu, and even Aristotle for their practical understandings. But yes, these bigger questions. I was on was it 2 days ago? I had a phone call with my friend in Texas, who I went to school with in Texas. He never really finished his. Because he was doing a dissertation on Fritz Wilhelmsen, and Wilhelmsen finally died, and he didn't want to work with the crazy woman that was there, so he never finished. He was a great guy. He was not Wilhelmsen, but the person talking to my friend. Won't say his name. But he was he was a little older than me at the time, so he's near retirement age. He's worked as a telemarketer, and like every telemarketer now works at home because of the nature of the COVID and the discovery that it's easier to shift our things to people's house and just make transfer costs to the worker. Okay, wonderful technique of what's happened in the world of telemarketing, right? The real shocking here is what he was discussing Heidegger. We're talking about Heidegger and things like this in Kant, and I do like Heidegger. I studied with Greg at Theodor Kiesel for 2-3 years. And I still get interest in Heidegger. I just don't. I studied him, and I read. I think he is important, but do I write about him? Not really, because I'm not. It doesn't really get a chance to write about him in that sense. That's not. We write about the things we want, have something to add to it, and I'm not sure. I don't think I might have something to add, my understanding of things in Heidegger, but I'm not so sure about that. Well, I'm more sure about my Aristotle. I'm more confident about my Aristotle than I am about my Heidegger. So, but that's interesting. Now, one of my things I am confident about, I hate Kant, is I can't take Kant seriously. Kant to me is almost like I sympathize with Nietzsche in this regard. Nietzsche's attitude toward Kant is looking as a sadomasochist, what Kant does to the will in that sense. I disagree with the will. I don't think the will is that useful a philosophical concept. I think it is a concept because of Christian. It is a concept in philosophy that's not really present in the ancients. I think we confuse choice with will. We confuse the question of choice with the question of willing, and the willing agency, which is a biblical conception of the divine spirit, of this idea of this willing. There's something that comes from this idea of the beneficent, intentionally willing deity versus just a ontological structure. This is the difference. The God of the Bible versus the God of the philosophers. The God of the philosophers is just a beginning point. It is simply just an arc. It is a point of reference by which everything else exists, where the God of the Revelation is a personal being, a being that is someone who is a caring and intentional, that there's intentionality and a willing of that intentionality in being and existence, and therefore history is thus progress, and history is nothing more the emanation of the acts, the moments of his particular providence. That's providence, right? Providence. This is this idea. This is therefore the idea of progress the idea of progress is a kind of secularization of providence in that sense. What is providence? Providence is the will of God. It is the good fortune that God has willed for you, that has provided for you. That's provident. Something is provident means it is well. It is something that is given and well to you. So therefore, God has provided this for you, and has directed you towards this. Right? That's the providential, and therefore there's directedness in this sense, and therefore time is a product of His willingness in that sense. There's that whole point. I mean, if you ever see the moment in Lucy, right? In that movie with Lucy, about the girl who gets that because of a drug, she gets super duper wise. Her mind gets to the point of complete cognition, and she becomes godlike. But at the moment that there is no time. Once you get the infinite, you speed everything up where it's perfect. What happens? It ceases to be. In other words, the only thing that we have being is because of time. The answer that the moment that we have thinginess, matter is possible only because of time in this sense, which is a very shocking thing if you know your Heisenbergian. In other words, what is things at the subatomic level may be at such a speed or dimension that the problem is, are they there? Are they even there at that level at such a speed, or at such a speed they're invisible and they're not noticed? But are they there? That they must be there. That if they're there, even at the super speed. They're just not visible. The question is that this is my point: is that she assumes that there's nothing there. There's a nothing, but that's nothing. At the level of eternality, is there anything there? The argument is that there's no time. At the level of eternal, there's no time. It's all time. There's nothing. Well, no, there could be still a there. Is that we don't see it. From the point of view of us now, there is no perception of there. We cannot know it. We cannot see it. We cannot experience it. We cannot know it on our own, in the state we are in. We must enter timelessness also. Do we enter timelessness in death? Or is death itself another aspect of time? So this is some of these questions of this that frustrate philosophy. And I said, frustrate us all. And I don't think many of you are going to come here for this kind of question, okay? but that's been kind of like thing. As you know, I've been reading. I didn't start it yet. I got the Bergson book about morality. I told you why in my previous video about the question of openness, and I think this is important. I think James as well is going to be William James's the religious experience is good, and I think Eric Hoffer's book on the true believer is still kind of a very important. This is a kind of trilogy of this these issues. He is very much responding to James. I've kind of reread sections quickly, just kind of glancing. He is very much responding to William James, the variety of the religious experience. And for him, it's the question of open society, the question of an open or closed entity. The social networks are very much a very interesting option of this. And this is why it's a very conception of what religion means, morality means in the sense. It's worth thinking about in the sense. But back to the point I was talking about, back to the Aristotle's virtues and Machiavelli. I'm thinking that Skinner is more and more right about Machiavelli in the sense that he's not responding directly to Aristotle, but responding more to Cicero and Seneca. More Seneca, I think. Seneca is the thinker that really defines the benefits of piety and beneficence. These are the things, and I think there is something in Seneca, the Stoics, and the way Stoicism does virtue is probably, and the way the medieval Christian world utilized the Stoics in a certain way may have led to a perversion. And Machiavelli is the correction. I think that's right. I think Machiavelli looks at the Middle Ages and the viciousness, the political viciousness. Now, people are going to say to me, "But the Middle Ages are nice." There's a big thing that the Middle Ages is, in fact, a great point. And there's lots of good things that emerged out of the Middle Ages. I'm not going to deny that. I am as much a student of, I agree with David Starkey that a lot of the good political institutions we come from the Anglo-American world are products of, again, but what the Middle Ages are, they're reinterpretations of classical Roman and Greek ideas put into the context of the reality of the time they're in. Okay, the Middle Ages is not a new thing. It's taking an old idea, an old thing, and then accepting the locality and reality of certain things and trying to adapt them. But the problem with the Middle Ages is always going to be, and Machiavelli's right about this, is that there is just too much competing. There is ultimately too much competing and they're a source of authority. There's just, in other words, and that this is a dangerous situation. It's dangerous because there's too many competing authorities. There's lacks of political authority, and particularly the power of the church. The church is a competing political, a realm of authority, and that these competing realms of authority not necessarily war with each other, but undermine each other to a degree that when there's a threat, there is a unified threat. And that unified threat will come from the Arab world, because you don't get in the Muslim world, you don't get the divide of you don't get the same diversity of. I don't want to get in trouble because I'll say you don't really know. What I studied of the Arab thinkers and the way early Islamic thought works. It's more similar to the ancients. In fact, this is why some French writers will point to, like Collage, who says the ancient world is a world where piety exists. And piety, in fact, Mary Nichols's new book on Aristotle, Aristotle's discovery of the human, talks about the importance of piety, right? And piety is important. I think piety is. But I've always argued that when people speak piety, we misunderstand what piety means. We think of it as holy. We think it piety. In fact, I think Machiavelli hits on this. Piety. In fact, this is the problem of the word piety. Piety and pity are connected in that sense. Pity and piety, the pious and piteous, are interconnected in that sense in Machiavelli's playing of the term. And that's why he mocks it at a certain level, because it's a very dangerous thing in that sense, particularly because it's piety is both good, but it can be bad. Pity can be both good and bad, beneficial. Any virtue, any good, anything, a characteristic or thing for Machiavelli can be good or bad. Aristotle would argue that the same thing. A characteristic can be good or bad, but some characteristics are particularly good, and then others are excesses and defects. Or the Aristotelian is a thing has an excess and defect, and the correct amount is like something like this, is always beneficial or useful or correct. But Aristotle is more kind of saying, well, that thing is it's the trait, and therefore the traits are going to be that it's not necessarily the middle thing, but the people are going to have a characteristic, and the characteristic is going to be a specific thing, and it's going to be either beneficial or harmful. And this is the way it is, and that's why. Whereas I need to start. And a couple. Someone is after the Midwest conference. My friend will be back. My American friend Trevor Shelley, and we will start doing something on St. Augustine on love. And I should spend some time on Augustine on love, caritas, because I think this is something I hit on in the work that I did with Trevor that was published a couple years ago about the fork, we call it the forms of political rule, where mastery economics, and then we had tribal entities, and then empire. Empire's kind of domination. Hi there, Dragon Master. Hi. We then looked at these forms and argued political rules, kind of this distinctive of middle ground between mastery and Mr. Green Glass either political mastery and political rule and mastery are not identical, but they share interlocutors. They share a point of interreferencing. But this economic rule is pure utility, rational utility margarine. So these are opposite. Utility, mastery is pure coercion, and or despotism, mastery, despotes, right? And pure economy, commerce, trade, agreement, utility. These are kind of complete opposites. That whereas politics is both it embraces the beneficial, the idea that it's similar to the beneficial of economics, where that the economic activity must be benefit all parties involved, right? So therefore, this idea of common benefit politics must be mastery only benefits the master, right? Mastery, despotism is the master benefits, the servant doesn't. Okay, or if he does, it's accidental or less to us. Where political life, the idea is that everyone receives a common benefit, right? The common benefit is the community. We needed to discuss the difference between care. Political rule is kind of it is a middle ground that involves also care, but it's not care. See, the opposite of economics is utility. The purpose of care is beneficence, where I give care to you because I love you or I care for you. Right? This is the idea. An economic activity is a giving and receiving, but based on utility. Okay, whereas care is the base because of love. Friendship. In other words, this is why care. Therefore, politics is both utility and care. It is not simply, this is where the libertarian view misunderstands it. It has no, this is why I've always found Ayn Randians problematic. They don't understand love. They can never really, because of their selfishness and their me, and great, how great I am, and oh, my great, wonderful things, and the I, the ego, and anything that is, oh yeah, once you care about the other and you lose yourself to the other. This is collectivism. This is psychopathy. There is a kind of sociopathy in this idea that anything that's other directed is a denial of self, where humans are both self and other directed. In fact, the human life must be both. The full human life cannot be directed toward the other at the total, complete expense of the self, but there are circumstances where that may be required for the sake of the survival of the community, which you benefited from, or for your or those of you whom you love, or who are your children or your benefit. And therefore, there is this idea of this double aspect of what is care. So that's why I'm interested in the question of care. C.S. Lewis's famous little book, The Four Loves, gives us a very good introduction to the question of how do we understand this distinction of love in the in the Greek it's eros, philia, storge, and agape, right? Agape is the paternal care, the care that is storge is concern. It is concern or care in this ordinary sense of dealing with the kind of thing. But there is this Sergei is a care that is like paternal care, or paternal care, caring and willingness. And as a paternal care, there's a kind of sacrificial aspect of this is why we attribute it to God in that sense. This is why the Roman translation of it is caritas, where we get the word charity from in English, is a This is why that famous the Catholics often say God is caritas, right? God is charity. The greatest of these is love, agape. The greatest of these is love, right? What is the highest thing? It's the greatest of these is love, and the Greek is agape, and Latin is charitas. So the greatest of these is charity. No, it's love. What is love? It's care. Now we understand charity as what? A kind of caring, but we see charity as a. This is the problem about this. This is why the Latin is close. This idea of charity is this. But when we see charity, we see it as a very specific thing. So to what degree is political activity, is that of caring? Now, this is why Augustine is important. But I think Augustine is struggling. I think Augustine's conception is struggling with Seneca. I think this is the thing. And we have Seneca's, virtues. And I think this is something that is worth thinking about. Those of us, if you're in, this is the problem. This is actually something here. Arendt was very much tied, and this is something why. What's her name? Jean Becca Elstein, who I didn't know personally, but I had friends who did. Spent a lot of time. So one of her books, she wrote a book on Augustine on political reform. That's a lecture that she gave at Loyola, the Loyola lecture. It was published by Notre Dame Press. I think it was published by Notre Dame. I think it's a very good book. She was very much influenced by Arendt. Arendt herself was very much concerned about the question of love, and that was her PhD work on not under Heidegger. She did it under Jaspers. She ultimately did it with Jaspers, not with Heidegger, but it was influenced by Heidegger. her Augustine on love, right? And this really focused her question of this early Arendt that ultimately Heidegger displaced. In fact, Heidegger was interested in this question of this is that moment in Heidegger. Heidegger had this Augustinian moment, 1920, mid 20s and early 30s, that 20s that he kind of did, but then he kind of embraced it and then disappeared. This is why some people say, he became Catholic again. He became Lutheran and then became he was going to originally Catholic. He was very much interested in these questions, and then he got a break, became Lutheran again, and then later he became Catholic again, right? The Aristotle break, this is that moment where it became kind of a very interesting thing for Heidegger. Arendt was very much influenced by the question of love in a sense, love as a political question. And we have to understand, this is again, piety means. What does piety mean? It's faithfulness. This is why religion, the older world, the idea of the koinonia, the shared life in koinonia with each other, and people living in a community that is autarkos, that is sufficient. They say self-sufficient, but autarkos is complete. In other words, as human, for our lives to be able to live well, the polis, the political community, is a complete koinonia. This is why translation in Latin is perfectus communitas, right? The perfect community, and this leads us to misunderstand as ideal. Perfect means ideal. No, it means complete. It means it is where we are able to achieve it is the place where we achieve our humanity, our what we are in its complete sense. We're able to fulfill it. And that is happiness, eudaimonia, right? This is the idea of this. And this is why I'm interested in this question, because I think it is a response to libertarians. It is a response to this kind of economistic utilitarianist view of remember, the economist utilitarian is one where there can only be voluntary action. There cannot be coercion. The problem with care, beneficence, is that people, sometimes the person who cares for you they do it to you. You don't necessarily want it. It's them. It's a gift. It's a gift. You can receive a gift or you can reject a gift. It's not it is the getting of the gift is not in your power. It is something that the other gives to you. It's in the realm of the other. It is not within the realm of the self. And I think this is why the Randian kind of types don't like this, because they don't see it as a virtue in this sense, because it's not yours. In other words, the virtue is the one who's giving it, and you're getting it, and therefore this is not a virtue in this sense. It's not tied to you. It's you're wholly dependent. And this is why it's a very troubling thing for them. This is why the libertarian prefers this idea of the voluntary action, the voluntary contract, the agreement, this idea of this consensual structure. Everything's consensual. Everything only the consensual is just, in the sense, this radical sense. Well, the problem with this is then, what the idea of the gift that is given to you, that is beneficial to you, that you didn't choose, and you would not have chosen, either out of ignorance or your lack of knowledge, or maybe you didn't want it. You wanted something else. The parent correcting you, the society punishing you, is correcting you to make you better. And being better is good for you. And this is the fundamental conception of what politics is. It is so, and this is why we say politics is soulcraft. What is soul? Our souls are this connection between our minds, our intellects, but also in terms of what we call our psyches. This is why psyche, the soul in Greek is psycheia. It's we get this mind, our mind, but also our what animal side, our organic or animal side, our spirit, a question of our spirit and our desires, our bodily desires and our desires and passions. These are the things that shape our actions and choices, and our political behavior and ethics. And this is why this is very interesting in that sense. So that has been my thoughts in that sense. This is Seneca on beneficence is something I read it a long time ago. We all read it once in a while on undergraduate things like this. I know I've been wanting to go do it again closer for everybody 4 years now, but I've just been too cheap because I have editions of Seneca. I've been looking at it. I even have the Seneca up here with the Cambridge. I think the Cambridge edition of Seneca. I know I have someplace where there's some of the things, but it's less getting students of Quentin. But there's an edition from Chicago which is supposed to be very good, and people tell me I should get it. And I saw it, I looked at it, but I said, oh, it's a little expensive, and I postponed it. But Trevor, when Trevor gets back, Trevor's been busy doing things. He's doing a Smith piece, which I wanted to do something on, but we don't have anything new to say. We have to say something new. And sometimes saying the old thing over again is useful to students, but not necessarily useful. Actually, from the point of view of scholarship, but the problem with scholarship is people forget it. People forget what the interesting thing, and therefore sometimes saying something that was true and said before, but people have kind of long forgotten it or don't think it's. But the problem with that is they say, "Well, but this has been said before. This is kind of outdated. Why don't you give something new?" And this is the problem of contemporary academic publishing it is fetishized about the trendy and the new at the expense of the true and the permanent goods. Well, that's it. I'm going to stop today. I'm kind of like this was nothing like them there. Maybe I need to plan a chapter on talk about love. The Beatles songs. That was that great scene at the beginning of Love Actually, wasn't it? Right? They called the Beatles song, right? The marriage scene. And I don't know if that was the beginning scene of it, but my wife always loves that Beatles song, right? Where was that song? I think it's in Magical Mystery Tour, right? If I remember correctly. If I remember correctly, that is the second half of Magical Mystery Tour. Well, love is hate the song, hippie man, hippie, love. But love is a very much human emotion tied to piety, tied to the question of what piety is. And piety, this is what Collage says. Piety is what? That the ancient political community, the political life, the city is tied not only to economics, utility, shared benefit, shared common benefit, but also to care. You have to love your fellow citizen. This is something I mean, a couple years ago for American Greatness, I wrote a piece. I got in trouble by they started, they went and found my old internet. I used in the 1990s when I was still a nice young teacher, before I became a teacher anywhere. I had a part-time job. I had a job as an adjunct in Connecticut, and it wasn't going anywhere because they were going to shut down. Everyone knew that the state was going to reduce the teaching accreditation, the requirements, and therefore they were going to let us go. And the Greek guy wanted to hire me to replace him in the Greek history. I was a political scientist working in the history department, and the political science department didn't want people like me. There was a more kind of it was a small political science department, and they didn't really want, it was just Central Connecticut. And there was never really a chance that they would hire me in that sense. They didn't. They was not going to grow. And the history department, I think they would have hired me and to replace him if he when he retired and he hired me, and they still didn't. They didn't do that. But the problem was I couldn't get the job once he actually retired because I was no longer teaching. I was no longer insider, and since I lacked a history degree, then I said, "Oh, do we want to hire a historian?" Um, if I was insider working part time, I might have had a chance with his support, but that never happened in that sense. That's the failure. I had some enemies there because of the conservative guy, in fact, the Polish guy who everyone loves here, loved him, he died there. He was a little slime bag. He was a hypocrite in that sense. He opposed me. The other conservative guy, European historian, conservative guy, he didn't really care. It was ironically I was brought in by this Jewish American historian, Jewish, but a very anti-Israeli Jew, conservative Orthodox Jew, anti-conservative, pro. This is hilarious. I don't want to talk about Ukraine because it's a crazy thing. Ukraine right now is a complete crazy thing, and it's subside. My wrapping up point. Ukraine right now is a problem because there's a fight internally between Zelensky and the former general, and because Zelensky doesn't want to draft the Ukrainians because it's the Ukrainians who don't want to fight are the ethnic Russians, and most of them are in Europe. Okay. And that the general wanted to basically force the Europeans to basically declare them, saying that they're call a draft and draft all the Ukrainian nationals living in Europe and compel the EU to send military-aged people to do this. Now, Zelensky did not want to do this. He says it's politically popular. Remember, he won political power from the ethnic Russians. He was elected. He was the party chosen by the ethnic Russians. So this is why he doesn't want to do this in that sense. He is ethnic Russian, but it's still Ukrainian in that sense. And by the way, none of these ethnic Russians who are living in Western Europe really want to be. They speak Russian and things like that, but they don't want to be part of Russia. They want nothing with Russia. They are Russian, but they want nothing to do with Russia as a state. So, but at the same time, they don't want to fight and die for Ukraine. So, and what the general wanted to do, that's why he was fired. And what happened was the person who he replaced him was a good general, but he's an ethnic Russian. So this is again Zelensky storing up his political reserve for after the war of promoting people, because which I think will happen is the former general will probably be recruited by the ethnic Ukrainians to run against Zelensky. And I think he may. And if we actually, one of the things that I think the first thing a Trump administration should do is force Ukraine to have an election. And I think because there's not militarily, Russia is in trouble. Yes, getting progress there, but it's not great progress. It's horrific. It's nothing strategic. Everything is being done to kind of give it. Everything is being done to get some kind of symbolic victory, so that March, so that therefore, Putin can, I did something, great thing, and then he killed it. So that's a joke in that sense. So I don't. And I'm going to stop here because I don't want to talk about this. I'm being polite to you by answering that question, but it's a complex problem and it's not easily answerable in that sense. Oh no, I think Trump is going to win. The polling data is so shocking. Even if Gavin Newsom is, I don't think Gavin Newsom has a chance to get put. I think the situation is so dire. Even if Biden doesn't get in, it's going to have to be Camilla. There's never been a case in Democratic history that they shifted them. It was in '68. This resembles what happened to Democrats in '68 when Johnson kind of steps down because of a challenge from an outside source. First, it was starting McCarthy, but then Kennedy popped in, right? But even then, what happens is vice president wins. And I think the same thing. I think Camilla will be, and you can't get away with not allowing it to be Camilla, because they picked her purposefully to secure the support of the women, the blacks, and the minority vote bloc, which is their only solid. And she's also neoliberal, so that the neoliberals don't, and she's incompetent. The problem is that she's so hated that there's no way in the world that actually, that's why none of the cabinet will do Article 25, because the last thing they want is no one in the Biden cabinet wants to be under Camilla. Look at Camilla's her record of staff. She's over like a 300%. I think it's over 400% turnover of her vice president's staff. Her staff ratio. She's had like 4 chiefs of staff, 3 or 4 chiefs of staff. They all flee. No one can stand her. She's horrible. I mean, I suspect on a good day. Remember the recording of Sheila Jackson Brown when she really viciously, vulgarly attacks her staff. That recording that came out about that, how she treated her staff, how she insulted and berated herself. The rumors that I hear about Camilla is that she's worse on that regard. So I think there's going to be a leak to. In other words, if any idea that Michelle Obama is going to no, this is a masturbation fantasy of the political media. Hillary was hated too, and that's why she was sabotaged. Hillary was hated, but Hillary was able to. There's a difference between Hillary and Hillary's hated, but Hillary was semi-competent. The only real competence that Camilla has is what she did with Willie Brown. I don't want to get banned here. But in fact, one can argue in the Clinton relationships, Bill was the political animal, but Hillary was the brains and the policy idea person, who was a good thing, right? She was hated, but she was, and she's not liked. She had no personality. Bill had the political smooth. She had the political knowledge and the policy knowledge. She was not. Camilla was never an idea person. She just did what she was told, and that was sending black people. I mean, I would love to run a campaign against Camilla. My Harris campaign would be, I would go in the black community. I would run black ads in the black media with all the pictures of the black men that she convicted as a prosecutor, and then show the pictures of the black people Trump released from prison with his things. You can destroy her. Trump can. This idea that Trump would lose if Biden is replaced by Camilla or Michelle. No one wants to look too deeply in Michelle. The second you look deeply in Michelle, you hear whitey everything. The reason why they didn't allow her to talk. She only goes to scripted places because if you look too close to Michelle, she doesn't want to become an office. She knows she was always kind of protected. Then there's the whole problem about Michelle's her law license. I mean, anyone looks at that little too closely. When you have to remember, she turned in her law license to avoid it from being stripped to her. She was facing disbarment and criminal disbarment at that. And that what happened was a deal was arranged by the Chicago political machine to allow her to just give back I'm not going to practice law anymore, to avoid the disbarment and the scandal. So therefore, this is a thing about this. What do you think about the Senate? Any danger? Yes, there is danger. I think the problem about this is this Cruz. I think there's a big danger in this, and doubt. The Republican Party in Texas is in the middle of a civil war between the Bushites and the MAGA supporters, and Cruz will have a very close election. Trump will take Texas by huge numbers, but Cruz won't. Okay, and therefore it's going to be very important to have Trump running. If Trump is not the candidate, a lot of Republicans will lose. In fact, it will be a blowout against Republicans, because without the Trump voter showing up, and the Trump voter is not the likely voter, it's the unlikely voter. Okay, and therefore, if these people don't show and vote, the Republicans will be fucked. That's why this attempt by Republican establishment to kind of wasting so much fucking money and time on the primaries was a crime. It was a self-harm. It was been a self-harm. Rich Barris is right on this. The money that was spent on this stupid, wasteful primary, that was meaningless. We shouldn't have crowned Trump. Well, Trump was going to be the favorite of the majority of the party. It was always the majority of the party was always in favor. He never had a situation where he was the incumbent. Oh, but he lost. Well, 2020 wasn't a normal election. Yeah, but that hate to say it, Trump has shown that. What about liberal states take Trump over? No, that's going to be overturned. I'm sorry, liberal states will not. The court is going to rule unanimously against what happened in Colorado, and they can't do that. And if that does happen, what will probably then happen is Republican states will then respond in kind. And there's more Republican states. Remember, if no one gets a electoral count victory, which you won't get if the states do this, there won't be there's not enough big blue states to get the necessary votes, and you get no electoral vote victory. So what happens? It then goes to the House of Representatives, and it's 50 votes. 50 votes. One state, one vote. And if you look at the congressional representation there, it will, trust me, there's at least 28 more. I think there's at least 30 majority states where Republicans are the majority lead in each state. So that's 30 votes for Trump, and that's the win. You only need the majority of 26 states. You get 26 and you're president. That's the Constitution. That's the rules. So if all of a sudden the states start play fuckery with the electoral thing, Republican states will have to react in kind. I think they will. The second they remove someone from that's why I don't think the court will allow it, and because the court knows that this will happen. But I think it's maybe better to let them to do this, and then Republican states respond. My God, okay, I'm going to over my time. I'm going to go say something. Given the stupid appeal court ruling about presidential immunity that was just out there, and knowing that the Supreme Court doesn't really want to hear this, okay, I agree with Rick Barrett again. Some Republican DAs or AGs need to charge Obama with murder. Remember, Obama authorized the use of a drone to kill American citizens. This stupid ruling against Trump, basically arguing that the presidents aren't immune, and how they wrote it, basically is dangerous in a sense. but the court is probably going to not want to hear it because it's divisive. The only way to get the court to rule this is to charge Obama with murder. 2 states need to do it, 2 Republican DAs. So Paxson needs to charge Obama with murder. A Republican activist DA, prosecutor, attorney general needs to do this. Now, the question of grounds. Remember, murder is a state crime. It's not a federal crime about murder. So you have to find the question of where was he a citizen of? You just have to find you find that he lived in Texas and claimed that he has Texas residency. You find where he is. You find the people who Obama killed, any of them in that sense, the children or something, they're any U.S. citizens. Then you just find it and then charge him. Charge him with crimes, or maybe even civic. Find a family member to sue him in a Republican state, a civil thing, for wrongful death. Given, again, the immunity that the ruling of the federal Republicans need to start playing the way Democrats are playing. Exactly. Go read the Trump hits. Who cares? They were terrorists, but they were U.S. citizens. You can't simply just arbitrarily kill a U.S. citizen. Sorry, you can't. Maybe in the commitment of an action, but this was not. There was not an active activity. So therefore, this idea about this, the drone hits. Now, I have no problem with what happened. I don't disagree with the drone hit. I don't necessarily mind the war on terror because, I'm sorry, these people are fanatics and they are the problem. The danger is how this is now being utilized. These instruments and these things are now being utilized against the Democrats' political enemies. And that is unacceptable. In other words, their abuse, the Democrats and the left, the Obama administration's abuse of this, and now the Biden administration's continued abuse of this, has now made these things taboo. Now, what was before? I don't like it, but it's something useful. War on terror. I mean, I send it to your account. You can send it to my. I don't know where to send it to. I don't really care about the war on terror. I think people stare over. I never thought the war on terror one way or the other. My problem with the war on terror was that it was not done properly. We should have killed more people. In fact, how I would run things would be far more. I would have hit teams everywhere, really have hit teams. I would knock out. I mean, I would treat the cartels as I would basically be telling Mexico that they're going to let us blow the cartels out of the water. I would send F-18 and B-52 strikes at the cartel production facilities. The smugglers who are smuggling fentanyl by the sea, I'd have my submarines. I would have subs tracking and sinking ships carrying fentanyl. Maybe not using torpedoes, but maybe applying, making sure there's a lot of accidents at sea. Okay. In other words, I don't mind using the necessity of force in this sense. Like what was wrong with the Afghanistan war and the Iraq war was we should have fought the war as we fought World War II. Don't send bodies when artillery shells can do. I mean, Ramallah, the battle of Ramallah, where the soldiers went building by building. No, we should have done is, hey guys, in 72 hours, we're going to level this village. So everyone better flee. And by the way, you have to come unarmed. And we're going to capture. If you want to survive, you're going to have to, if you're a combatant, you have to surrender. So if you don't want to surrender, stay there and die. Don't you keep, but everyone else can leave, because everyone in the city is going to die, because we're going to send 2-3 days of B-52s just flattening the place every square inch with enough things to leave nothing living. And then after we go, and then we'll send the people with, sniper teams to go popping the survivors. But you have 72 hours to flee. Okay, you don't have that. Okay, the great videos of Al-Qaeda and so on. No, I mean, the Marines fighting this was a wasting of. I mean, there was this idea that we needed to prove that we could fight, but we didn't fight. I mean, this was you read about the Marines could have won the first battle of Ramallah if they were allowed to use heavily. My God, if they brought in Spectre gunships, a few Spectre gunships, or maybe 2 or 3 B-52 strikes right on the center, would have. Then you send the Marines in. That's how you win those kind of wars. And then if you did that in, if you, the Germans, after we did not bomb Germany, Germany did not suffer into World War I. So that's what therefore they left that they didn't really lose the war. We were betrayed. World War II, we fucking leveled the place, right? Therefore, the Germans felt, well, we lost. Right? It was in their face. We rubbed their defeat in their face. This is what someone I was trained by, Angelo Codavita always tells. If you don't get peace without victory, you don't get victory. You only get peace when the other side realizes they've lost. And the way you lose, what is the Israeli going to do with the guys? They're going to level the place. The Israelis are kind of the Israelis are actually doing it pretty better. They're bombing and then they're sending the troops in. They're not going to send. They're not sending in the troops right away, and going building by building by building, and they would have high casualties. We had high casualties in places like Ramallah and those like this. Not as high as the Israelis normally get when they fought Hezbollah and places like that. When they send the ground troops in or tank troops in, now they're bombing first, then question later. Now. One of the problems with Afghanistan and that was we should have just leveled places. Make sure they realize that they lost and make it uninhabitable. You don't have to use, you can, but you're starting in the stuff. Who cares? So they flee into Pakistan, and then maybe we should have made a deal. We should have put a gun to the Pakistanis' head and say to them, "You're gonna take them out as well. If you don't start taking the Pashtun out, we'll do it for you." Yeah, but that's because he needs Netanyahu always needed the Russians to keep the Syrians in check, and the Syrians are there to keep Hezbollah in check, because although Iran sponsors Hezbollah, they do so through Syrian intermediation. And yes, Syria and Iran are kind of collaborating. They do so on there is an agreement, but there's also a point where the Russians are more important to them both. In other words, Russia is now becoming more dependent on Iran than they used to be. But the Iranians need Russia for a lot of atomic stuff and stuff like this. And therefore, the Syrians need the Russians for air-based control and help. Because without the Russian presence, I think there would have been a big thing differently. So therefore, Netanyahu does have to play the Russians. But the Russians are gonna their power in the whole region is gone. And what power they have, and even the resources they have, both in Africa, Southern Africa, where they were causing trouble, and that is gone with the death of Prigozhin, and the head military directors is is by no means the Russian guy and his own private PMCs, his now controlled PMCs, don't have the ability to do things they used to do. And everything of the Russian PMCs are now focused on doing as much as they can in Ukraine, because they need to do that. Everything is focused on Ukraine. Everything right now is focused on Ukraine. So therefore, no, it's not. It's now it's controlled by the military, the defense chief. As his other, he basically eliminated that and absorbed what was left of it into. He kept Wagner as Wagner, but it's smaller than it was, and it's now part of his chain of PMCs. He had two PMCs already, and then now he has the third, Wagner, and that what that is. Okay, so that's it. I'm go back to U.S. politics. It's crazy. It's going to be. Haley is driving me. Haley is just being it's ridiculous. I have no loyalty. That was a great video. That's a anyone who knows about her cheating on her husband, that statement. Oh, I have no. Donald Trump's mad at me because I'm not loyal. I'm not loyal. Yeah, that is so true. Yeah, you had multiple affairs on your husband while he was serving in the military. You treated your husband as a cuck. And the only reason why your children are supporting you is because they're getting jobs by the big defense contractors. We know where you are a woman of paid virtue. So that's who could win the U.S. election. It's going to be, given the polling and the data stuff right now, it's going to be Trump by significant. He may not win the ultimate vote count because of the ballot harvesting in states, Democratic states. But he's going to win states if the turnout is the highest energization. The idea that there's going to be a replacement of Biden, that's going to change the dynamic. It's going to be, if they change him, if he dies or something happens, they're going to have to basically put in Camilla, and Camilla has no thing like this. Camilla is by no miracle in that sense. The VP slot for Trump is, I think there's been a lot of talk now that Vivek is going to be the VP because of what happened. He showed up at Mar-a-Lago with Trump, and he and his wife, and with Trump and his wife were introduced at this big Mar-a-Lago event. And this was kind of, I agree with you. No one trusts Vivek at all, but his outreach, his ability to reach out younger voters is going to be a useful thing. And but I don't think he's going to be the VP. I think Trump should encourage, if I have anyone who's doing this, I would talk to Trump, to get Vivek to go to California and become governor of California, run for governor of California, you win. Transform California. But I think Trump is far right. I don't know. Trump is not far right. Trump is a liberal. He's we live in a world where 1990 liberals are fascists. Okay, this is funny, right? Trump is as far right as business Democrats. Exactly. This is, in many ways, Jamie Dimon and Trump are very similar. Okay, they are Democrats. Naturally Democrats because they're Northeasterners. Trump was kind of a Republican, but then he became a Democrat because of a lot of things in the 1990s and like that. And you are much more progressive in certain social values and race questions and gender questions, and even abortion. He was more liberal. In fact, that was the whole point that in 2016 debate, the famous New York values. argument by Cruz that which backfired. How Trump flipped that from being a bad thing in Iowa to a good thing in Iowa, and came close to winning Iowa because of that. No, I think Trump's not far right. This is absurd. This is like saying, the queer guy, what's his name, Dave Rubin is a fascist, far right. Rubin is all these guys are mostly liberals who turned. It's like saying Joe Rogan is far right, or even Elon Musk's. They're not conservative. They're not people of the right. Hell, I'm a man of the right. I've always been a man of the right, a person on the right. Not necessarily the far right, because the far right is cuckoo. I mean, they go too far. Van Rijk, Van Rijs, Van Vogt. No, that's the UK. You're a little too far. They're fun though. Not really. Extreme far right guys are never fun. The liberals, the liberals. These liberals who are. It's fun to see these liberals. 90s liberals realize they fucked up. They're on the wrong side. Like seeing how Brent, what's his Mar going completely like, oh, wokeness is like. I hate Trump, but same thing with some of these other guys, like that actor Rappaport, saying, well, I didn't realize they lied to me. Well, Trump is a fucking scumbag, but he wasn't wrong. He did things right. Well, that's the whole point, right? This. Well, but I was lied to. I believe their lies. Well, this is hilarious. This is funny in that sense. It's hoisted on their own petard in that sense. Okay, now I'm at hour 30. I am definitely going to stop today now. My wife is going to say to me, oh, what are you doing this? Why are you wasting time? My other video hit, so it's today's video is released on that. So therefore, that's it. We'll say hi there. Please like it. You can follow me on social media. The link's below. My academic social media is below there. Hit the like button. Please do it. Jonathan Bolden. I don't know who they are, but I don't know. Who cares? But I mean, he's a minor figure. He's minor. Maybe I'm not paying attention to social internet. This hit like button. Hit like this. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. Encourage others to subscribe. I'm getting close to the 400. I'm gonna have a party on 400. I'm gonna have a party event on the 400. A live stream 400. I say 400. Yes. And hopefully that's going to be the event that happens. So take care. See you again. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. Like if you're not like, and then put your comments down, and any issues you want to talk about, please put the comments in there. Take care and bye-bye. Happy weekend. Rah.